All right. Well, good morning, everyone. We're here for our morning devotions. Good to see everybody. And this is episode 193. I posted 2 Samuel 19:16 through 23. I entitled the Shemei, Mephibosheth, and the King. And as I said, this is a really long chapter, but the king is on the other side of Jordan, and he's got to get back to Jerusalem after being exiled. And so we read in verse 15. So the king returned and came to Jordan, and Judah came to Gilgal to go to meet the king, to conduct the king over Jordan. And Shimei, the son of Gerar, wait a minute, let me see. Where is that? I'm probably going to come across it here. Um, yes, I'll come across it later. Anyway. It says, and then in verse 16 we have Shimei. Now remember who Shimei is. When David is beaten and he's running from his son, and Shimei is the guy that finds him. He's from Benjamin. He's a Benjaminite, so he's on the side of Saul and that side of the family, and he's throwing rocks and stones and cursing him. And now the king is back, and he realizes that he's in a jam because he doesn't expect this to happen. This is just a good lesson. Shimei is going to come to his end at the hand of Benaiah at the order of Solomon. That's going to come up in the early chapters of First Kings. And but he is just a really, really bad guy that has put his foot in his mouth with the king, with someone with this kind of power, and thinking that the king was not going to survive this. And of course, now David is on his way back to Jerusalem, and now Shimei is worried about what's going to happen. Well, David in this passage of scripture promises not to kill him because, again, Abishai says he's had it up to here with this guy. And so remember back when Shimei was doing this before, David was conscious of his own sin and said that God had sent him to do this. So I mean, just let him have at it, and he can say what he wants about me, curse me, throw rocks and stones at me, and all of this. And perhaps God would even have mercy on me for the fact that I'm tolerating this. I mean, all of this is what we looked at earlier. Well, now he's back because David is back, and he's worried about what's going to happen to him, which is a legitimate thing. And it says, and Shimei, the son of Gerar, a Benjaminite, and there it is. See, which was of Bahurim, hasted and came down with the men of Judah to meet King David. Now, he comes with the men of Judah, all right, to meet the king, and there was 1,000 men of Benjamin with him. And then it says, and Ziba, the servant of the house of Saul, and his 15 sons, and his 20 servants with him, and they all went over Jordan before the king. This Ziba, excuse me, this Ziba thing too. Wait till we get down here to Mephibosheth, because Mephibosheth says that Ziba betrayed me, and that when remember Ziba brought him all that food. He said that was from me, except because I'm lame in my feet. That I prepared all this sustenance for you while you were trying to escape, and because I couldn't go, we packed all this stuff up, and Ziba just left me, and then said that I'm not siding with you, which he says is not true. That's the next section here. All right. So you got Ziba again, and there went. Here it is, and there went over a ferry boat, and that's what I was looking for. Because you got the king's family. What are you going to do to get across the Jordan River? Well, there was a ferry boat to carry over the king's household and to do what he thought good. And Shimei, the son of Gerar, fell down before the king as he was come over Jordan. All right, he's there to meet the king. He's bowing because, I mean, he's just expected to be killed. Now he's going to plead for his life, essentially, right? And said unto the king, let not my lord impute iniquity unto me. Why not? Why not? Why shouldn't I put to your account the iniquity of what you did? He says, but he's pleading. He said, neither do thou remember that which thy servant did perversely. And he even understands it was perverse. Should have never done it. It's like included in the Bible, like as a side note. I mean, it's all scripture. But did this guy have to do it? Was this essential that while David is going out, that this guy, Shimei, he shows up in the Bible here, that that he is cursing the king. Now, I believe God sent him to do this, but I mean, it's not, whether he came or not isn't going to change anything. David's going to come back to the throne. Anyway, he does, and he says, I acted perversely. Yeah, you did. He said, the day that my lord the king went out of Jerusalem, that the king should take it to his heart. Yeah, well, the king did take it to his heart and responded accordingly. He said, I am worthy of this that this perverse man is doing to me because of my sin. I am leaving, and I realize that this is God's judgment upon me. He tells Abishai not to kill him, and maybe this is God just wants me to handle this well. I mean, he did think about this, and he tells him then he's not going to kill him. All right, and he leaves this in the hand of Solomon, his boy, after David dies, and that's a great story. For thy servant doth know that I have sinned. Now he's confessing his sin. Therefore, behold, I am come the first this day of the house of Joseph, go down to meet my lord the king. So I'm the first in line to try to make things right. But Abishai, and here, I love Abishai. I mean, he is a brother to Joab, but Joab is like, he's the big brother that, you just follow the big brother kind of thing. Abishai assists when we read back about how Abner was killed, but the fault falls to Joab, all right? So Abishai doesn't fall in the same category according to the biblical record as his big brother Joab, all right? He said, and Abishai the son of Zeruiah answered and said, shall not Shemei be put to death for this, because he hath cursed the Lord's anointed? These boys, they're just going to take care of this guy. He wanted to kill him before, and now he's coming back. He still wants to get rid of him for what he's done. And David said, and this is interesting. I think this is interesting. He says, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah, that ye should this day be adversaries unto me? What he's saying is, this isn't the time for this, and now you're acting against my will. I mean, they're not enemies, but you're acting against my will here. And he goes on to say why. He said, shall there be any man be put to death this day in Israel? For do not I know that I am this day king over Israel? This is a time of celebration. This is a time where we're moving forward. This isn't a time for executions. I don't want to mar this day of my return. That's essentially what he's saying. All right? This is not in keeping with the trajectory of the day. I'm coming over Jordan. The first thing you want everybody to know, and I'm adding this, but the first thing you want everybody to know is the first thing David did when he came back over Jordan and he's back in the promised land, he's on his way back to Jerusalem, is that I ordered one of my generals to kill this guy. He said, no, that's not going to be the record of my return. All right, so no, Zeruiah, the son of Zeruiah, okay, my sister, he said, we're not going to do that. He says, therefore the king said unto Shemei, thou shalt not die. And the king sware unto him. That did not happen until you get later, because David reminds Solomon on his deathbed of all of this and leaves it up to Solomon to take care of this guy. And when you see how Shimei, his life ends, it's all on Shimei, the way that Solomon sets this up. It's amazing. All right, I'm not going to get ahead. So that's Shimei. So Shimei, he pleads for his life. I know what I did was wrong. I've sinned against you. And Abishai does what we expect Abishai to do. And David says, well, you're gonna survive this. The next is Mephibosheth. Now, Mephibosheth is the son of Jonathan. And before, Ziba says that Mephibosheth Mephibosheth is trying to sees in your exit an opportunity to establish himself on the throne, which we find out here is not true. None of this is true. It's interesting when you read the commentators that some of the more modern guys are kind of ambivalent about this, about David's not sure about this, about Mephibosheth's, David isn't sure about it, but what's happening here, when you evaluate who Mephibosheth is and what he's done, and the testimony here, what Mephibosheth is saying is true. And Ziba, the one that got the good graces of David earlier on, is the culprit here. All right, that's the key. The response of David to this, though, is a little ambivalent. He should have, most guys would argue that he should have been more decisive about this because Ziba lied to him, and he shouldn't have just did what he did. So let's look at this. And Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king. All right. Now, he can't walk. He said, and had neither dressed his feet nor trimmed his beard. You should see the commentary on this word beard. There's so much in the Bible about it. I don't imagine that you are in the commentaries about it. It's amazing. The root of the word beard here is his mustache. Comment after comment after comment is about this guy's mustache. Okay, that he had not trimmed his mustache. I'm not going to get into that. That's just a little smiley bit of information here for this Wednesday morning. He said, as part of his beard, but it is specifically in reference to his mustache. And he had not trimmed his beard. He had not washed his clothes from the day the king departed until the day he came again in peace. That is, he is lamenting this is the point. He didn't clean himself up. He didn't shave. He is lamenting. He is mourning this. This should have been a clear indication to David that Ziba is the one that misled him and lied to him and put Mephibosheth in a bad light. This guy is the son of Jonathan, and he did receive all the blessing from David, and he has not forgotten about David, of the way David has graciously cared for him. He was not a contender to the throne, as Ziba said, now that David's on the run. That this was all a setup, all right? It's interesting, even as I say that, because I read a lot about this. That what was Ziba thinking, that David was never coming back? See, I don't know, because he's the one that delivered him the food. There are bits and pieces here that we could still figure out, but I think based on the exegetical record here, the record in Scripture, that Mephibosheth is the good guy in this story. He says, and it came to pass when he was come to Jerusalem to meet the king, that the king said unto him, wherefore wentest not thou with me, Mephibosheth? And so there's the question that he asked Ziba, where's Mephibosheth? So now the first chance he gets to see him, this bedraggled, unshaven, hasn't changed his clothes, Mephibosheth meets him when he finally gets back to Jerusalem, and he says, well, why didn't you come with me? Now, there are some conspicuous reasons why he would not come with him. One is they're running for their lives, and Mephibosheth can't walk. So he's going to need help. He's going to either be in a cart, somebody's going to have to carry him in a litter, or he's going to walk on crutches. Any of these ways. But anyway, he is not suited for this kind of escape. Especially remember when Jonathan and I forget the other guy's name, Ahimaaz says, listen, you got to go run now, because if we don't follow Hushai's counsel and the other counselors' counsel to attack takes place, you can't be where you are. You got to run further. That's when he crosses the Jordan. It would have been tough for that to happen, all right, with a crippled guy with you. So he says, why didn't you go with me? And he answered, my lord, O king, my servant deceived me. And there it is. That is where he's pointing at Ziba. My servant deceived me. He said, and what I'm saying is, I don't believe that this is a falsehood. I think this is exactly right. I think Mephibosheth here is being a noble son of Jonathan. He says, my servant deceived me. Let's see, let me get back here. And thy servant said, I will saddle me an ass that I may ride thereon and go to the king, because my servant is lame. So they're getting everything around is the point. And he hath slandered thy servant unto my lord. That is, he has slandered me. All right. Lord the king, because he says, but my lord the king is an angel of God. That's what he speaks of David. Well, after the way David's taken care of him, I can understand why he said that. Do therefore what is good in thine eyes. Oh, wait. He said, I will saddle me an ass that I may ride thereon and go to the king, because thy servant is lame. He slandered me and says David's the good guy. So essentially what happened, he said, we're going to go. And then he packs up all the stuff to go to David and leaves Mephibosheth. That's essentially what's happening here. For all of my father's house were but dead men before my lord the king. Yet didst thou set thy servant among them that did eat at thine own table. See, he's rehearsing the fact that you have promoted me to eat at your own at your table. You have cared for me as you promised my dad, Jonathan. Like I'm royalty. He says, I have nothing but highest respect for you. He calls him an angel of God. Um, he uh, he has this deep love for him. But listen, after his servants are gone, and if he's still on David's side, left behind, who is really there to attend to Mephibosheth? The guy can't walk. You see, he's in a tough strait, and this whole idea that Ziba said that he's waiting for this opportunity for the kingdom of Saul to arise again that was a prevarication. He said, "What right therefore have I to cry any more unto the king?" That is, you have been so good to me. What right have I to ask anything else of the king? I mean, you've just been so good to me. And the king said unto him, Why speakest thou any more of thy matters? Well, see, this is the verse that gets everybody a little bit. This is when David is supposed to listen. It gets everybody on edge because now he says he's actually found out the truth. And it's almost like he's not paying attention. Like, why? Let me just read it again. He says, Why speakest thou any more of thy matters? Why? It's like he doesn't want to hear any more about it. I mean, and that's the point. David, at this point, remember I said that his decisions are muddled, they're not decisive. Here it is again. This is not a decisive decision. He's heard this information. He should have determined that what Mephibosheth was saying was correct. He at least should have had Ziba in there and said, "What is all of this?" You see, this is how things are sorted out. I did this with my boys. It's the best I could do as a dad, but you're not always there as a dad to see things that need to be cared for, discipline the dad has to take care of. But I made up my mind. I was never going to just paddle off three of my sons um, uh, just because I couldn't figure it out. So I would just have them all three stand there. And then I would just sit back like this and I would ask them questions. And what about this? What about this? And what about this? And after a while, and it doesn't take long, it doesn't take many questions, you can figure out who did what and who, if it was two or if it was all three or if it just was just one. So I hear the story and everybody's talking, and then it's not you. You take off. Okay. Now there's two sons left, and then it's here. That wasn't you. Okay. So there's one left because this is a matter of limiting the information, and he's the one that got paddled. I mean, because I wasn't going to because I couldn't figure it out, I wasn't going to just stop and not take the time to figure it out and take guys that actually didn't do anything and paddle them. That wasn't going to happen. David could have at least did something like that, but it's like he's in a hurry or he's not thinking about it. He doesn't even get Ziba up there. He says, I guess I'm done talking about this. And then he says this, I have said, thou and Ziba divide the land. Right there, thou and Ziba divide the land. And that verse, that word right there, when you read the guys, is tough because most guys think that this went back to the way it was before. Because remember, he said he was going to give all the land of Saul to Ziba. Right? That was what was happening because he thought he'd been betrayed by Mephibosheth. So, thou and Ziba divide the land. Most guys think that the dividing of the land means we go back to the original contract that you stay in the palace and you continue to just eat under my table, eat with me in the palace, and Ziba goes back. It's not going to be his, like he's going to get everything that Saul owned, and he's just going to go back and farm the property. That I think is most likely. But the other thing is if it's divide the land, because it should have been clear is the point. Does it mean because I already gave it to Ziba and now you're here and you haven't done what I was told, then you're actually going to divide the land? See, that's the other thing. And it's those things that you just wish David would have said a little more to get this sorted out. That I'm just reflecting the things that I've read in regards to that passage. And it said to this, and then it says this in verse 30, and Mephibosheth said unto the king, Yea, let him take all. See, this is just a man who is a honorable man. He's humbling himself. He's before the king. He's so thankful. He said, and Mephibosheth said unto the king, Yea, let him take all, for as much as my lord the king is come again in peace unto his own house. That is all the only thing that I'm concerned about and so happy about is that you're back. That's Mephibosheth. So that gives us a little bit more insight into that. So we got Shemei. They don't kill him. This it seems like David should have had a clear understanding or sought out a clear understanding before he said, I'm going to divide the land, and saying, why speakest thou any more of thy matters? Like, well, it's, it's like nothing. I don't want to listen anymore. Okay, I've had enough. And then you come to this guy, Brarzilla, the Gileadite. He is an old man, and I love this guy. He is an old guy that loves David. And from verses 31 to, 40, it's all about this old man that takes care of David. It says, and Brarzilla, the Gileadite, came down from Rogelim and went over Jordan with the king to conduct him over Jordan. Now Brarzilla was a very aged man, even 80 years. He's 80. And he provided the king sustenance while he lay at Mahanaim, for he was a very great man. So he's a rich guy and he's old. He said, and the king said unto Brarzilla, come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with me in Jerusalem. Come back to the palace with me. He said, and Brarzilla said unto the king, how long have I to live? He said, I've lived a long life. I'm up to 80. The king really likes him because he's been taking care of him and he's wealthy. He said, I will feed, he says, and Brarzilla said unto the king, how long have I to live that I should go up with the king unto Jerusalem? I am this day 80 years old, and can discern between good and evil. That is, and I'm just getting up in years, all right? Can thy servants taste what I eat or what I drink? Isn't that interesting? He says, I'm just getting old. My taste buds aren't working either. Can I hear any more the voice of singing women, singing men and singing women? My hearing is going. He said, wherefore then should thy servant be yet a burden unto my lord the king? I think it's interesting here that an old guy recognizes his limitations because he's up in years. He said, I am not the man I used to be, David. Why should I wear you down? Because I'm just I'm an anchor. I mean, David loves him, but this is his own assessment of himself, which I think is interesting because he looks at himself and says, man, I am losing my hearing, my taste. I'm not thinking as clearly as I used to do. All right. I don't think you want me around, David. Well, I mean, what good really am I going to be to you? He's a great guy. He said, and he says, thy servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king. And why should the king recompense me with such a reward? I was happy to do it. I don't need to be rewarded for what I did. I'm just happy to do it. He said, let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, and that I may die in mine own city. I just want to die on familiar ground. All right, I know you're honoring me by doing this, but I just want to go home and die among my friends in the town where I live. All right. He said, and be buried by the grave of my father and my mother. But behold, thy servant Chiham, let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what seemed good unto thee. And it says, and the king answered Chiham, go over with me, and I will do to him that which shall seem good unto thee. So he's thinking about his servant because he's probably been just faithful. He wants to reward his servant for being so good to him for all these years. And he says, no, take him and reward him. Do for him what you were going to do for me. He is a great guy. He said, the king, and it says, he said, and whatsoever thou shalt require of me, that will I do for thee. And all the people went over Jordan, and when the king was come over, the king kissed Brarzilla. See, these two old guys. This is a kiss of friendship. They have, one's the king, of course, but one's an old guy. They're both old guys. One's the king, but one is a very, very successful businessman who knows his place in life. He knows his place in life, really, I think, at this point, better than David. Yep, this is Brarzilla. You don't hear, I think this is the only place in the Bible that you hear about him, but what a testimony this guy has. His name be recorded in the Bible, and the way he speaks about himself, realizing his age and just the way that he's cared for David, and he's got such a clear outlook of what life is going to be. I mean, what he's going to do. He's just going to go home, be with his friends, be buried with his mom in the graveyard of his mom and dad, and that's the way he's going to end his life. All right. He says, but I got a servant here. You can reward him. And David says, yeah, let's go. And then it says this in verse 40, and the king went on to Gilgal, and Chiham went on with him, and all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. Okay, he's back in the promised land. Verse 41, it's not over. And behold, all the men of Israel came to the king and said unto the king, why have our brethren, the men of Judah, stolen thee away, and have brought the king and his household and all of David's men with him over Jordan? You see, it's because there's such animosity, there's such tension, it looks like, although it says some of the guys are Israeli, some of the Israelis say, we should have had a part in bringing you back. All right. And I mentioned that before. That's tough. I mean, because the men of Judah and the men of Israel are not getting along. And wait till we see this. But there's tension here is the point. And all the men of Judah answered the men of Israel. See, it's back. He says, because the king is near kin to us, therefore, then be ye angry. Wherefore then be ye angry for this matter? Because he's of the tribe of Judah, and we're tribe of Judah. That's why we brought him over. So why are you so angry that you didn't have a part in it? And this gets back to what family you're in, which is clear, but he's not just the king of Judah is the point. He is the king of a nation. He's got to bring everything back together, and everything is not back together here. So the men of Judah are addressing the fact that he is a part of the tribe of Judah. But from the king's perspective, he is the king of everybody. If you're going to be the president or the king or the prime minister, you got to be the prime minister of everybody. That's the point. You are there as the head of a nation. A nation. And the nation is comprised of all kinds of people. All right? And that's why if you're going to be a good king or you got to be a good president, the thing you must follow is the law. That's it. You got to be a follower of the law because there's all other things that will vary between all the people groups and people that you have the oversight of as the king. It said, he says, because he's a near kinsman to us. Have we eaten at all of the king's cost, or hath he given us a gift? That is, he didn't pay us to do this. He hasn't rewarded us in any way for this. We're just doing this because we're family. And then it says this in verse 43. That answer was not good enough. And this goes back to the issue of the Civil War. There's been a civil war here, and men have died, and there is tension here, and they're trying to get the king back in the palace. That is not already. We're just going to come to the end of this chapter, and it's not close to being fixed. And the men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, we have 10 parts in the king. See, now they're looking at it from the perspective of numbers. 10 tribes occupy Judah. Only Benjamin and Judah, or 10 tribes occupy Israel, or the way it's being described here. It's all Israel, but we're speaking of the divided kingdom here, which I think is very interesting because this is long before Rehoboam and Jeroboam, but it's already divided that way. Isn't that interesting? You only get Judah and Benjamin on the side of David, and Benjamin is kind of fuzzy because that's where Saul came from. The 10 tribes in the north with Rehoboam and Jeroboam, after the nations are divided, this is dividing line again. We have 10 tribes in the north said, most of us, and that's why the army was larger too, when the 20,000 men were killed. You got 10 tribes in the north, you only got 2 in the south. That's what they're saying. The men of Israel answered the men of Judah and said, we have 10 parts in the king. Yeah, that's true. And the big tribes are in the north. I mean, you got Ephraim and Manasseh. These huge tribes in the north, all right? And Judah's a huge tribe, but the landmass, I mean, these rich, wealthy tribes, I mean, Ephraim and Manasseh in the north are powerhouses. He said, we have 10 parts of the king, and we also have more right in David than ye because of the number, which is not true. That's not true. It's not a matter of numbers. He is the king over the whole nation, but they're saying, listen, most of those people he reigned over are us, which is true. We occupy all that land mass, and there's more people up there. He said, And we have also more right in David than ye. Why then did ye displease us that our advice should not be first had in bringing back our king? That is, why didn't you take our counsel in how to get this done, and rather just doing it unilaterally? They don't want to do it unilaterally is the point. And here it is. And the words of the men of Judah, which are the ones that brought the king over, and the men of Israel said, why didn't you include us in this? Because we're bigger and stronger, and there's 10 tribes, and you're only 2, and they're making this case. Why didn't you consult us in getting this done? And the words of the men of Judah were fiercer. And I said that. The word fiercer here, they're violent. More violent than the words of the men of Israel. The men of Judah that brought David over, what it's talking about is these are fighting words. This terrible contention between the north and the south. Hot fighting words, violent words. And that's where chapter 19 ends. Okay, so I'll tell you. This all stems from the curse upon David back in 2 Samuel 12. I told you way back with this, when he fell into the sin and the murder, that everything after chapter 10 is just a downward spiral. And I'll just say it again. These are the implications of the sin. This is the stone in the pond and the ripples. And the ripples keep going and going and going. God forgives the sin, but the implications of it in the life of David, and it's to warn us, inform us to live good, righteous lives. That's what this is all about, because the implications are not that God does not forgive us. It's just that life goes haywire in horrible ways. Okay. Well, the Lord bless you, and this is Wednesday, and I said this is episode 193. We're getting closer to that 200 mark. All right. Well, the Lord bless you. You have a great day. Lord willing, I'll see everybody tomorrow. Okay. Bye.